All right. Well, the first question would be, why have you decided to run for the assembly?
Yeah, so I'm an LA native. I was born and raised here, and I lived in California for most of my life. And I just seen in that time, like, just our state politicians just constantly cater to the ultra wealthy and ignoring working people here.
Yeah,
And our California, I've lived here my whole life. California's never been this Marxist republic that the right loves to claim it is, but because our politicians are not trying to improve the material needs of a lot of people here, is left this
yeah,
giant vacuum of reactionary and right-wing thought, or like, yeah, thought to flourish here in California, where if nothing improves, I do believe that California might turn red or purple in the next 10 to 15 years. And I think we're seeing that very evident with how for the longest time in this gubernatorial race, the top two politicians in this race were two Republicans. And based on California's
yeah,
jungle primary system, we might have been stuck with two Republicans in the general. I don't think that's going to be the case now, but it was that for a
yeah,
long time. So I'm challenging this incumbent who is a corporate centrist Democratic
yeah.
politician, your typical establishment, and he has not done enough to, improve the lives of working Californians here. So that's why I'm running.
Great. So, what are your main priorities?
My main priorities are to, make California affordable. And I know that sounds simple on paper, but
Yeah,
when we talk about affordability, it's not just about how we can lower the price of goods. It's also how we can put money back in the pockets of everyday people. And for me, that means,
yeah,
fighting for CalCare or Medicare for all, Medicare for all or CalCare as it's known here in California.
yeah,
You know, we are the richest state in this country. We are the wealthiest, fourth largest economy in the world. Absolutely no reason why we cannot guarantee healthcare to every single person in the state. Every other country in the world manages to find a way to provide healthcare. Um, Even Mexico just announced that starting next year, they will be providing healthcare to their
yeah,
citizens. And there's no reason why we cannot do that here in California. Businesses are struggling. It's also very pro-business. Businesses are struggling because of rising healthcare costs. We just saw, Assembly District 51 does represent a lot of Hollywood and a lot of entertainment. We are seeing
yeah,
entertainment jobs losing to California because of the rising healthcare costs here. I mean, we saw Marvel Studios announce that they're moving to the UK because they have the NHS there, socialized medicine. And
yeah,
those are business jobs that could be stayed here if we had something like healthcare. Next is universal childcare. I recently got married. It's a little personal for me, but like I recently got married and my wife and I really want to start a family, but the price of childcare, excuse me, is so incredibly high that it's not
yeah,
just preventing us from starting our family, but so many people my age. We are pricing out people from becoming parents because due to high rising childcare costs, going back to healthcare, even with really good health insurance, like the cost of prenatal care and even childbirth can get to up to like $15,000. And that's a lot of money people don't have. So
yeah,
it's pricing a lot of people out of becoming parents. And, another way we can make California affordable is obviously taking on housing. How we are in the middle of a housing crisis and we have to build more if we
yeah,
are to combat this crisis. But I do believe we also need to build more social housing for our unhoused neighbors. You know, Housing is healthcare, and people with mental health needs do far better when they have a roof over their head. Additionally, I think we have to take an honest look at the role of private equity in our housing market as well. Over 200,000 housing units, excuse me, in Los Angeles County are owned by private equity or corporate investment firms. And there are 72,000 unhoused people that sleep on the streets of Los Angeles every night. That's
yeah,
almost three times the amount of housing for one unhoused person. It is making sure private equity did not start our housing crisis, but it sure isn't helping. And I think we need to also look at that as well as build more. So those are my priorities here.
All right, great. What are your do you have any specific ideas on education, for example?
I mean, education, we have to let teachers teach. I think, funny enough, I am running on against the assembly member who authored AB 715, which definitely hinders a lot of teachers' ability to teach in the
Yeah,
state. Just for your viewers who are unfamiliar with AB 715, It's a anti-discrimin. It disguises itself as an anti-discrimination law, particularly around anti-Semitism in our K through 12 schools. But really, what this bill does is silences discussions around Palestine just to protect Israel from
Yeah.
criticism. In the
Yeah.
bill's original language, you could not say that, Israel is a colonial apartheid state. You couldn't say that, it conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I mean, I was at a rally a couple of weeks ago for teachers in Los Angeles about teachers because of this new law. Teachers had to take down their, Palestine flags in their classrooms, had to take down Black Lives Matter flags in their classroom. Effectively, it hinders a lot of like ethnic studies and critical thinking skills
Yeah.
around how capitalism, how colonialization affects the history of the United States. So
Yeah.
that is one aspect I'm also focused on. Obviously, the affordability aspect as well. Making sure teachers are paid more, making sure teachers have healthcare so they can focus more on their students, making sure that there's housing so teachers don't have to like drive 3 hours, live 3 hours away just to teach at the schools they teach. I mean, it's all interconnected. So
Yeah. Well, as you focus on healthcare and particularly childcare, do you have specific measures in regards to mental health?
I mean, childcare does include mental health. It includes dental
Yeah.
health as well. So I think it's important. I mean, these are huge preventative measures, especially when we're talking to Link about on like homelessness and mental health care. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have access to that, and a lot of people, because they don't have access to it, or because the services are so expensive, don't get the preventative care needed to stay off the streets. My
Yeah.
cousin is diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He was living on the streets for a while, and he could have been if if resources were available for him, he could have been stayed off the streets. Luckily,
Yeah,
he's
totally.
he's he's in a much better place now. He has found housing. He has the healthcare needed to stay off the streets, but it could have been worse. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that the one of the biggest topics is also about ICE and migrant discrimination and policies to support migrants. Where do you stand on those issues?
we have to protect our immigrant communities here. Can I curse? I don't want to curse actually. I don't, but
You can
yeah,
totally. Yeah.
I'll keep it clean here. But you know, ICE is just is it's disgusting how much our California state government has allowed ICE to just infiltrate our communities
Yeah.
here. You know, here in Los Angeles, Karen Bass can say all she wants about ICE does not collaborate with the LAPD, but they do. That's how they've been able to track and find immigrant communities here and yank them from their families. So we will, as a state, we need to make sure that we clamp down harder to say you cannot, one, no more detention centers can be built in the state of California. We have to
Yeah.
fine the federal government every time they're for these detention centers because we do not want them here. I think we need to be harsher on making sure that local governments do not allow their police to collaborate with ICE.
Yeah.
Sanctuary cities exist for a reason. There's history behind those policies, and California must retain its roots as being an immigrant state as well as Los Angeles being an immigrant city. So that's what I want to fight for and stand for.
Yeah. Um, well, about LGBTQ plus rights and all civil rights and civil liberties, constitutional rights. I guess you will support those, but do you have specific issues that measures, sorry, that you wanna focus on or implement?
I mean, but kind of like what I was going to before,
Yeah,
a lot of the things I'm fighting for are very interconnected. So with healthcare, to make sure
yeah,
that LGBTQ folks have access to healthcare, especially trans people have access to trans healthcare. I don't think doctors
yeah,
should be turning away, children or not children. Well, yes, everyone, children and all, for healthcare. It is important.
yeah,
Housing as well. California has been a leader in LGBTQ rights. I used to work at Equality California, and I know this, like, but it still falls behind short on a lot of issues. The majority of homeless youth in this state are LGBTQ youth. So making sure that we have housing for them, should they be on the streets again, it's all interconnected. So while I don't, yes, I'm just gonna. ended there.
Great. Well, the sorry. Well, the because of the district you wanna you're going to you're running to represent, I think it's important to talk about AI, and
Yeah.
if you have specific specific concerns about AI and
Oh,
the centers. Yeah.
many. I have a lot of concerns, for a lot of different reasons. Again, going back to entertainment, I don't think AI should be used in entertainment personally, and I would fight to protect, to protect, the creative fields here in Los Angeles, to make sure that entertainment doesn't rely on AI. Um, we need to invest more in storytellers and creative fields to make sure that we,
Yeah.
increase the arts. Over the weekend I saw I Love Boosters. It's a great film. And we need more movies like that. That again don't rely on AI, that don't use AI.
Yeah.
Um, Additionally, I think there's a lot of issues with AI. I mean, we're seeing in Los Angeles again, we're seeing how AI is being used in the political sense. Spencer Pratt he has some AI ads, like AI billboards out there. He may not make them, but there are a lot of people out there making these AI cringy AI videos of him as like Batman, him as like a Jedi, like
Yeah.
using other people's likeness to, attack them and everything. I think that's very disrespectful. I think that has no place in the political realm. We can have one conversation about creativity, AI and creativity, but there's another space for like, I think it should be absolutely banned in the political sense. Now with the data centers and everything, there needs to be a moratorium on it. No one wants to have these data centers next to them. They
Yeah.
pollute their communities. They, they exacerbate climate change. They drive up energy costs. They're loud.
Yeah.
They're not these job makers that a lot of people say they are. Um, and this is before we get to the societal impacts of AI. A lot of people are. It's funny. I Last year I was watching. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there was the TikTok series about the woman who fell in love with her psychiatrist.
No, I
And,
don't follow TikTok.
and no, but it was like some woman who was posting their
I'm a
story went
little
viral.
old-fashioned there.
But the thing I'm getting at is like because she turned to AI and AI was exacerbating. Clearly, this woman was like dealing with a mental health crisis. And AI was exacerbating it by saying, like, no, you're so right, you're so right, you're so right. Like just
Yeah,
exacerbating it
the
further.
story sounds familiar. Yeah. Yeah.
And that needs to be regulated. Like, have the effect of AI in our children, our growing minds here. Like it's terrible. And that's
Yeah.
the societal impact that we need to focus on. And I think there needs to be massive regulation around AI. Yeah, that's where I stand. Like I overall AI is bad. There are good aspects to AI,
Yeah.
but overall, well, from what I've seen, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, the way it's being used right now is not the best. Well, do you have any specific policies to protect the environment and support the fight against climate change?
Yeah, so we need to vastly, make sure that we invest in renewable energies here. I grew up in California, grew up in LA. Since in my lifetime, I go to the beach now and I'm like, wow, there are a bunch of offshore drilling operations going on our beautiful beaches. I think those need to end. We cannot keep drilling on the
Yeah,
ocean. We cannot drill in California's more because of, this state is one of the most, no shade to other states here, but like California is the most beautiful state in this country to me personally. I got to
yeah.
make sure I say that that's a personal opinion.
Oh, I
But
agree. I totally agree.
and we need to, so therefore we need to invest more in renewable energy, so more solar, more wind. I would
Yeah,
even say we can look into nuclear. I'm open to nuclear as well. Um, I think bringing back, a lot of the credits for EV credits, make sure that EV credits or EV cars here in California are available and accessible to a lot of low income people. They're not. I was looking in the market for one. The cheapest one I could find that suited my needs was about $50,000. That's not affordable for anyone, for most
yeah.
people here. And obviously I didn't buy the car, but like It's not. And it needs to be, if we're serious about tackling climate change, we need to be less reliant on on fossil fuels, especially as gas prices are soaring right now due to the war in Iran. We need to be less reliant. And then also looks at we also need to look at how our cities are functioning. So, having more dense
Yeah,
walkable cities helps in that fight. I'm wearing a Ciclavia hat. I don't know if you can see, but here, are you from LA by
yeah.
chance? Okay. So you've heard of
No,
Ciclavia? No.
no, no. I'm
Um,
not. I'm not.
Ciclavia is like one of my favorite aspects about living in Los Angeles because they shut down parts of the city where you can go on the main streets with your bike, and it's a lot of people, a lot of community comes out. We get to bike everywhere, and I
Oh,
want them
that's
more of
nice.
that. Yeah, more biking, more densible walking areas. I'm very glad that the D line opened more stops, but I don't think that's enough. Obviously, I know they're extending it more next year, but I want California to have, or Los Angeles to have, a robust public transit system so many people are not reliant on cars. I joke, it's funny to say this, but the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, there's truth to that LA, Los Angeles used to have one of the best public transit systems in the world because of a lot of like corporate greed, a lot of like lobbying from, the automotive industry. They gutted these vital things that could have made Los Angeles on par with New York in terms of public transit.
Yeah.
So again, public transit, densible, walkable cities do help in the fight against climate change.
Great. Well, this isn't something that I think, but it's a an important question. What do you think that, challenging the other Democrat who's the representative of your district right now? Why do you think that challenging him is something that you should be doing? What are the main differences between you two?
I mean, let's go with the more superficial stuff. Like I'm half his age. He is 70 years old. I'm 35. I bring a unique opportunity here with a young perspective because I am someone who faces the affordability crisis here in California on a daily basis. Clearly, the incumbent is worth a lot of money. He does not. I have to
Yeah,
make, like I mentioned earlier, my wife and I can't even start a family because of the rising costs here. It is too costly for us to become parents. It is too costly to even move out of our apartment right now. It is too costly. Like, thank goodness we're both healthy, but I I shudder just to think about if one of us were in a medical emergency right now.
yeah,
And that's why I'm fighting for it because there are a lot of old people, not old people, but a lot of that a lot of people in that old Democratic establishment guard who are disconnected with the needs of current people right now. So that's
yeah,
the more superficial thing. I used to work for him too. Fun fact, I used to work for him. When he was the executive director of Equality California, I worked there back in 2011. Excuse me, not 2011, 2015, 11 years ago. Um,
yeah,
I He is someone who takes money from a lot of the corporations that profit greatly off our affordability crisis here. He has taken money from Airbnb. He has taken money from corporations like Amazon. He has taken money from health insurance lobbies, and it's no surprise when he votes against these critical bills that would I guess have his donors lose money. Something like healthcare, something like more housing. He voted against SB
yeah,
79. He takes money from Airbnb. Connect the dots. Um,
yeah. There's a Zionist lobby there, of course.
Yeah, and that's what I'm about to bring up too.
Yeah,
He is one of the most pro-Israel politicians in the state. He authored AB 715. He's co-authoring AB
yeah,
2664, which again, for your listeners, if you're unfamiliar, it's essentially what it does. It makes it illegal to protest outside of a place of worship. So this is done, and with you know, obviously, I want to make sure that everyone has a right to peacefully practice their faith. But this is not what this does. It's meant to protect evangelical churches. It's meant to protect synagogues when they do like fundraisers for the IDF, when they do real estate auctions of stolen land and in the occupied West Bank, which again is illegal under international law. It is to protect a lot of this interest.
yeah,
Um, it's very concerning because again, these interests protecting Israel, doing PR for Israel right now, especially as it's committing genocide. Palestinian people and it's slaughtering a bunch of people in Lebanon, it doesn't make our lives affordable here. You know, we don't.
Yeah.
How is that making my life affordable here by making sure that no one can criticize Israel in a K through 12 school? How is that making anyone's lives here affordable by protecting a evangelical church from having like a real estate auction of stolen land? That doesn't. So again,
Yeah,
it
it
goes
makes
back.
prices go up. So
Yeah. So that's one rate. That's why I'm going in this because I think we need better leadership from someone like that.
yeah.
This is a man who's been in Sacramento politics for decades. He does represent that old guard of like new Democratic era of like Bill Clinton. He even did. It's funny enough in the I didn't know this, but in the Knock LA voter guide, they mentioned how because he's been around for so long, he did fundraisers for then Governor Bill Clinton when he was running for president the first time around. It's
All
time
right.
to let new people, it's time to let new people step in. And I think I'm that new person.
That's great. Well, the last question because I forgot about the economy, jobs, and of course workers' rights.
So is there a question or is it just like my thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Uh,
if you have, your policies on those areas. Yeah.
I will always protect people's right to unionize, make sure that they get their fair share. We are seeing, so I'm always in favor of, minimum wage increases, especially as we head to the Olympics. I support the fight for 30 in Los Angeles so that workers can get paid a decent wage, especially as Los Angeles will be in the center of the international stage in a couple of years. And
Yeah.
that includes protecting workers' rights to unionize and protecting, making sure that they have everything they need. But again, going back to the affordability crisis here, it's about putting money back in the pockets of everyday people. It's about making sure that, healthcare isn't tied to your employment. So in case you are at a bad job, you can leave and you will still have healthcare. So making sure that your rent won't go up and kick you out on the streets. Many unhoused people do have jobs and they work multiple. They just been simply don't get paid enough and been priced out of their communities.
Yeah.
So I do believe that all those things that I mentioned earlier are labor issues.
All right. Well, thank you very much for answering all my questions.
Of course, thank you. And I'm sorry if I was scattered all over the place.